All right, well, welcome everyone. My name is Becky Meehan, and I am the Assistant Director for Recruitment and Admissions here on the Wsu Spokane Health Sciences campus. And I've been asked by my good friend Veronica to provide a welcome to campus. So welcome to our beautiful campus, and we're super excited to have all of you here. And congratulations to the 22 young women that are here to kick off this. So let's give them a round of applause. Yeah, I'm really excited about what you guys get to learn and all of the networking that you get to do and all of the leaders that you get to meet and learn from. So it's going to be a great 6 days for you. Just a little bit about the new leadership program. So I'm new to learning about this too, so I'm just going to do a little bit of reading. So it's a nonpartisan 6-day residential program dedicated to inspiring and educating young women as yourselves to be the next generation of public servant leaders. Participants, you guys are going to learn from local women, I believe, local, statewide, women, and get a chance to interact with them in discussions, panel discussions. You get some hands-on learning opportunities too. So I think it sounds wonderful. A little bit about WSU Spokane. So WSU Spokane is one of 6 WSU campuses statewide. We're a land-grant institution, and that means that we have a presence in every county of the state. So I think that's pretty awesome that you guys get to be here as a part of that as well. We are partnered with our Gonzaga College of Arts and Public Arts and Sciences. Yes, College of Arts and Sciences. So we're really lucky to partner with them on the civic engagement side of things. So while our focus is on health sciences, civic engagement is really a part of everything that we do in the state, and every discipline focuses on civic engagement. So welcome to our campus. Welcome to the program. I hope all of you have a great experience while you're here. And I would like to invite Holly Fleshman to the stage to welcome our keynote speaker.
Hello, everyone. My name is Holly Fleshman. I go to Central Washington University, and it is my pleasure tonight to introduce our keynote speaker, Carol Evans. Carol is an Eastern Washington University alumni where she excelled in business administration, and later she became a certified public accountant. Since then, she has served as the executive director of the Spokane Indian Housing Authority and spent 28 years as the chief financial officer. Among her many accomplishments, Carol Evans is the first woman to be selected to lead the Spokane Tribe of Indian Sovereign Government. Excuse me. I got some time to speak with her earlier, and even in just that little time, she gave me some incredible words of encouragement and wisdom. And I'm so excited to hear what she has to say tonight. So please help me welcome Carol Evans with a round of applause.
First, we got to get this down to where my level. I am always, whenever I address anybody, we always start in thanking our Creator. So what I would like to do first is offer a prayer, a blessing. So Cox Chowie, please stand. And just so you know, I don't do this to offend anyone. Everyone, you pray, you have your spiritual self in your own way. I don't put anything that I believe in spiritually or my spiritual leader up there. I don't force them on you. So you have in your heart, you have your prayers. But I will offer a prayer for you. Colin Sutton Lemlinch. Thank you, Creator. We just thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for all the wonderful gifts that you give to us. So there's so many of those gifts. You give us the air, the water, the land, and everything around us. You give us the people, the animals, the birds, and the fish. There is so much that you give us, and we're thankful. And today we just ask that you look down on all of these beautiful young leaders and just bless them. Bless them with good hearts and good minds, and just let them know in their hearts that they are beautiful people and that you put them on this earth for a special purpose, and you will guide them to find that purpose. And today we ask that you just help them do that and keep them safe and guide them in their journey of this life, for they all have a purpose. And we just thank you for them, and we thank you for their presence today. Be with them as they go through the week and learn about leadership. In your name we pray, amen. Shay. Thank you. I thank you for letting me open up with a prayer, because for me it's a way that I'm able to center and kind of express myself, because it's important that every day we get up and be thankful that we have another day, and that we acknowledge to our God, our Creator, and thank Him for everything we do. So, hes chlu petsia, psalmasas lui squest. Tum lui squest lu tin Pauline Stearns, mestum lu squest hin Leroy Stearns, chichia lu squest lu hin Cecilia Abrahamson, Kenya lu squest lu hin Catherine Andrews, Sila lu squest lu hin Magnus Abrahamson, Scapa lu squest lu hin Leroy Stearns Sr., Stechua lu hi Senit Shaketon. That is my introduction, and in introducing myself, I was taught by my grandmother and the elders of my community and of my tribe that it's important that when I introduce myself, I tell you who I am, where I come from, who are my parents, who are my grandparents, and who are my ancestors. So what I told you, Tsamasa is my Salish name, a name given to me by my grandmother. Her name was Cecilia Abrahamson, and she is actually my chichia, and I introduced her as Cecilia Pion Abrahamson, and she is the one who gave me my name, Tsamasa. Tsamasa is a rag doll, and it was her rag doll that she made as a little girl that she played with. So when she gave me the name, it meant a lot to me, because she loved her rag doll, so she loved me. And so that name is special to me, and Tsamasa I will be till I leave this earth. I introduced my mother and father, Leroy and Pauline Stearns. They're both Spokane tribal members. They lived their whole lives on the Spokane Indian Reservation in Welpinette, Washington. My maternal grandparents were Cecilia Pion Abrahamson and Magnus Abrahamson. My grandma Cecile, who was one of my main teachers in life, is a Coeur d'Alene tribal member from the Coeur d'Alene Reservation in Idaho, and she actually was a tribal councilwoman on the Coeur d'Alene Tribal Council. My grandfather, Magnus Abrahamson, was a Spokane tribal member who lived on the Spokane Indian Reservation. My paternal grandparents are Catherine Andrews, who also was a Spokane tribal member and grew up and lived in Welpinette her whole life. She was a little tiny lady and just had so many. I was a neighbor, so I got to see her every day, and she had so many special things that she taught me, and just a beautiful little lady. And then my paternal grandfather is Leroy Stearns. Now, this you're going to find interesting. He was a non-Indian, and he was like 6'6" tall, and his ancestors came from Wisconsin. So our family has this joke that we're cheeseheads, because, you know, we're always for Green Bay because we had a great-grandfather that came from Wisconsin. So he was my grandfather, and I remembered him. He was a lot older than my grandmother. But I remembered him as a small child, and I remember him picking me up and feeling like I felt like I was, up in heaven. So, and then I told you where I live. I live in Wellpinett, Washington, on the Spokane Indian Reservation. And the reason I introduce myself this way is because if I tell you who I am, who my parents are, who my grandparents are, and who their parents are and where they lived, then you and I may have a connection. If I go back farther into my ancestry on my maternal side, my mother's great-great-great-great-grandfather was William Pion, and his brother was Baptist Pion from Pion Prairie up here. They lived up here. And so perhaps you have ancestors that taught, my ancestors taught to farm, or if you go back on both my mother and father's family tree, way back, there's a grandfather, several generations, and his name was Wsu Spokane. And he was a Kalispel tribal member that came over the mountain from Kalispel tribe, and he settled with an Upper Spokane named Sophie. And they're in the Chewila Valley. So if you're from Chewila, perhaps some of your ancestors knew some of my ancestors. And so actually from Wsu Spokane, if you take the Moses, his English name or the name they gave him was Moses, and you go down, probably about a fourth of the tribe comes from that family tree. And so it's the reason my grandmother and elders told me that you introduce yourself that way is not only so we can make a connection, but so I know where I come from. I know what I'm about, and I know who my people are. It's really important. And the more I learn, the more I watch and see on the outside, you just turn on the TV and you see Ancestry.com. So now I know that all of you and your people are also learning how important it is to find out where you came from. And and what I would encourage you to do is try to do your own family tree. If you do your own family tree, what you will find is that in order to do that, you have to go out and talk to people, not just Ancestry.com, but you have to talk to your parents, your grandparents, your uncles, your aunts. You have to reach out. And once you do that, you will experience something that I can't explain. It's something that you just find out that you belong. Where do you belong? Where did your ancestors come from? Back to Ancestry.com, you see the person who had the kilt, what did they have? They had the little Scottish thing, and then they had to get the kilt because they found out they came from over here, not over here. That's just awesome that people now want to find out where they came from. It's important, but I kind of talk a lot about that, but it is important to know where you came from. And so that's something that was taught to me by my grandmother. Having a family tree and knowing where you came from is really important. I'd also like to share something else that I learned from my grandmother, Cecilia. And I'm going to do this. What I want you to do is I want to volunteer. Would you come up, please? And everyone else, I want you to turn to someone else next to you. And I want you to come around here. I want you to give me your hand. Hello, my name is Carol Evans. So glad to meet you. You're a beautiful young lady. And I'm sorry, my hands are cold.
No, it's okay. Mine are warm. We'll balance each other out.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, of course. It was nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
You are wonderful.
All right.
You remind me a lot of my grandparents.
Oh. So, how did that feel? Uncomfortable? Oh my goodness, that's the first time I heard that. So I got a story behind that. My grandma Cecile, I had to be maybe 4 years old, And she came, and she did this a lot. She'd come and she'd pick me up, and then we would just drive, and she would tell me stories. Well, this one day, I had to be about 4 years old. She come and she picked me up, and we went to Albert Sam's. Albert Sam was an elder neighbor about 2 miles away, and he had a wife. And I know when you're that young, you know, and people with wrinkles and their bandanas, their calico dresses, you know, and their moccasins, and you go in there. We went into his house, and all of these elderly women are sitting along the wall, and all the elderly men are sitting on the other wall. And my grandmother took me, and she made me go to every person and shake their hand. And that was amazing. Because what I felt is like I was the hero of the day. Everyone was paying attention to me, and all of those elders were just looking at me like I was a gem. And they were pinching my cheeks and shaking my hand, and I felt so good. And that's one of the earliest memories I had. But what my grandma was teaching me is this is how you introduce yourself. You shake hands, you look at people, and you acknowledge them. You acknowledge that they're a human being. They're important, just like you're important. And so I learned that day at an early age. And ever since then, I've been shaking hands. And it's just something she taught me. Our elders, our grandparents, they taught us things like that. And so, you know what, I really thought about shaking hands, and I thought, man, there's got to be something behind this. There's got to be science behind this. So, like everyone else, I Googled it. and I did find some science. This lady, her name is Florin Dolkos of the Beckman Institute Research, confirms an old adage about about handshakes with strangers do form an impression of those who offer their hand in a greeting. There's a good impression, a good feeling. And then the Science of People reports that when you shake hands, it releases the bonding hormone oxytocin. I think that's how you say it. So I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking, did my grandma know that? I can assure you she did not know that. But I can tell you, I can assure you that my ancestors, they knew a lot of these little secrets. They knew that the shaking hands, asking for permission, being kind to people, acknowledging people, knowing that each and every person is special. And you have to honor that. I'm special, you're special, and those teachings are real important. And so my ancestors have known these for generations, for thousands of years, these type of things. They didn't know the science and the proof behind it, but now we have science that proves that we know that shaking hands and treating people good is good. And so I encourage you to always, whenever you greet someone, maybe you're uncomfortable shaking their hand, but always greet people with a smile and acknowledge them. And so I just think that that's important, that we always, know that we need to treat each other with respect. Also, kind of on the same line, I learned a lot of things from my grandmother and from the elders of my tribe. And a lot of these things taught me about my ancestors, about their customs, their traditions, their practices. And a lot of this we've lost, but it's things that taught them how they sustain themselves. How do they have a healthy body, a healthy mind, a healthy emotional, mental states? So a lot of their teachings, a lot of their oral stories address this. That we have a lot of oral stories. Every tribe in the nation, I think, has a creation story. So some of our oral stories will tell us why things are the way they are. And so, for example, the creation story, Spokane tribe has a couple of creation stories, but it always, in our stories, it always starts with the animal people. and the animal people are either out there fighting or they're trying to overcome a big challenge, a monster. And so there's always someone that is a leader. There's always someone hiding, trying not to do their job. So in the stories, it really talks about all these things and how you can look and say, oh, that's me. Oh, that's my sister, and things like that. But in the end, in our creation story, the trickster, or the person that's trying to get all of the animals to overcome the big monster, is the Spelia, which is the coyote. And so, but in the end, when they overcome, he convinces the badger and the beaver and the birds. Everyone had their purpose in this story. But once he convinces them that they have to kill this monster, and they tear it, they're successful when they came together to address this monster, and then they were able to kill it and then tear it apart so it would never come back to life. That they would throw, say, the legs over here, and that may become the Colville tribe, or the arms over here become the Coeur d'Alene tribe. The head becomes the Kalispel, but always the heart is the Spokane tribe. And every tribe, they have the same, similar. The heart is always the tribe that's telling the story, and so, but that's the creation story tells how we came to be and why we've been here from the beginning. We didn't take a boat or anything. We've been here forever, and that's what our creation story tells us. Another thing, and this is stories of an explanation of why things are the way they are. Another one might be, why is the Spokane River here? Well, the Spokane River is here because it is a lifeline for our people. My ancestors were river people. We were salmon people. We lived off the salmon. 80% of our sustenance was from the salmon. That beautiful creature that came all the way, every year from the ocean, came all the way up here to the Spokane Falls and spawned. And our salmon chiefs would gather here. Our salmon chiefs and the Colville salmon chiefs would gather up in Kettle Falls, or Little Falls area, where the salmon would come. And then they would regulate the commerce of taking those salmon and harvesting them. And the one thing about the Spokane River and that being the lifeline, my ancestors would look at that and really be thankful that that was the lifeline that brought the salmon here. And it was a gift that we had to always be thankful for. Thankful that the Creator put the river there so the salmon could come and then we could live off of it. And one of the things with our ancestors through their teaching, we never took more than we needed. We never took too much. We never took it so that they couldn't come back. If there was a problem where we were taking too much here, our salmon chiefs, we would stop and we would go find another place because we need those salmon to come back the next year. Otherwise, we may not survive. So that's a story that we have been passed down through many generations of the Spokane people. And these are all oral stories. Another one might be a simple one like, why does a chipmunk have stripes? And there's a whole oral story. And to hear these elderly people tell these stories on why the chipmunk has stripes is amazing. You listen to these little elderly people sit there and tell you the story with so much emotion and actually acting it out. It's really amazing. And so I was really fortunate that I got to experience a lot of that. Other oral stories passed down from our ancestors may identify good behaviors that we have to have. Not why something is there, but why we have to get up every morning and thank the Creator for being here. Thank Him for all the gifts that He gives us. Or why it's good that we have to not gossip about one another. I mean, could you imagine an amazing story, oral story passed down about all these animals and this, this chatter and talking about this one and what happens to that one. And so in the end, the story ends. The reason you don't want to do that is because look what happened to that bird, And so, maybe he got a beak that he can't open up wide or something, and we have stories around those type of things that encourage us to be good people. We call it Scally, and I always thought Scally was Indian people, because my grandma always said, it's a Scally, nice, and I'm thinking, oh, that's us, we're Indians, because it always had to relate to being good. But then she started calling others Scally. And so it took me a long time to figure this out. But Scally just means good. You're good people. So I can be a Scally, and so can you, no matter what race you come from or what background. And so that's important to know, that we're all good people. So for me, these teachings have really helped me become the person that I am. I just am so happy to have been able to spend so much time with my grandmother, with the elders, to listen to the stories. And one thing that I was not ever able to do is become a fluent speaker of our language. And I feel bad about that. My mother was a fluent speaker, my father was, but I think I grew up in the age where they didn't want you to learn it because they're scared that you were going to be held back or something. So I didn't learn the language, and I can introduce myself. I can say some of the words and actually say some of the prayers, but I am not a fluent speaker, and so I guess my advice to you about the stories that I've talked about, or about my experiences with the elders. If you have a grandparent, or if you still have your parents, maybe the next time you're there, ask them if they have stories, or ask them how things were when they were growing up, when they were children, and you're just never going to forget that. And it's best to do it before they're gone, because once they're gone, you can't get it back. So I'd encourage always, if you have grandparents, to visit them and learn about their life, because if you learn about their life, that has come down to you. Part of that is in you, whether you know it or not. I also wanted to talk a little bit about my tribe and tribal history. The Spokane people, we're standing on the homeland of the Spokane people. About 3 million acres was our homeland. And we had 3 bands, upper, middle, and lower bands. And that was kind of how we were situated in relation to the Spokane River. The upper would be in this area, up going towards the Canadian border. The middle would be like below the falls and going towards Tum Tum and that way. And then the lower would go for the current day reservation is all the way to the Columbia River. And so that was the bands. And we were more of, we really weren't the Spokane tribe. We were more large families and groups living in this area. And this family someone may be part of this group, and then they, for whatever reason, may move over and become a part of this group. But when we were moved to the reservation, that's when we all had to move there and stay there. So, and that was actually in 1881 when the executive order that established our reservation. Like I said before, we were salmon people, river people. We looked at the river as being sacred. Not only did the river provide for the salmon and the eels, we also lived off the eels that came up. But water is used for so much. You cleanse your outside body with the water. You drink the water, and it cleanses your inside. And so So we always knew that water was sacred, and to this day, you know, I think we're almost born with that feeling of we have to protect the water, and it's important. I just was born, maybe some of the stories taught me that, but I just feel, I know I have a connection to this land. Every time I come here, I think, oh, maybe 1,000 years ago, my ancestor was buried here, so I have to walk softly on the ground because I might be walking on my ancestor. It's just something that, you know, is inside. And I'm sure you have these special things too. You just need to open up and accept them. We had the annual harvest of the salmon. Salmon chiefs, they regulated. We always shared with the other tribes. The Spokane tribe was a peaceful people. We did not really war until the wars of 1858, Steptoe Butte and the Plains Wars. We had a couple of wars, and then after that, Colonel Steptoe came through and killed all of the horse slaughter and killed the horses. And so after that, but we never were a warring people. We were a kind of a kind, accepting people, and we accepted others into our tribe. And until we were being pushed off our land, and that's when we decided we needed to fight, and we had help from some of the other tribes, including the Coeur d'Alene tribe, Palouse, Cayuse, and some of the Yakima tribes. We were gatherers. We gathered roots, berries, and I could imagine even the Baptist Peon side of my family, they would probably go up on Spokane Mountain to pick huckleberries. In fact, I go up there now and pick huckleberries. I was up there last year. They have a lot of huckleberries up there if you like huckleberries. We were hunters. And before contact, we were actually a matriarch society, which to me is amazing. You know, when you think of the woman role is so critical. And so what I've been told is the women would be in charge of the food storage, and even the chief could not go in there and take food whenever they wanted. They needed the permission of the woman that was in charge of that. So, and when you think of why is that? Well, it's natural. We're the ones that bear life. We know Mother Earth. We know how much we need to get to here. And for my ancestors, they needed, once they harvested the salmon, collected all the berries, dug all the roots, and preserved them, that had to last a whole year. And so who better to regulate that than the woman? You know, the woman that knew how to stretch that and make it happen. So we were a matriarch society. We lived in family units, moving to where the food was located. And like I said, we were established by presidential executive order in 1881. We're not a treaty tribe. What I'm told is when Stevens was in the area, he was to come back to sign a treaty with us, but then war started, and so it never happened, and we were recognized in 1881 through an executive order. Current day, we have a reservation which is about 40 miles northwest of here. It's approximately 158,000 acres, and we have about 2,800 members, and 3 sides of the reservation is surrounded by water, which, you know, was real important to my ancestors because we were river and salmon people. We needed to be by the water. So on the east boundary is Shimmican Creek, to the south is the Spokane River, and to the west is Columbia River. So we share with the Colville tribe boundaries in that respect. We have about half of our tribal membership live on the reservation, and then the other half are all over the world. Of course, a lot of them would be in Spokane area. The political structure, we have a constitution that was adopted in 1950, and in that constitution, 5 leaders take care of the government affairs of the tribe. And I happen to be the chairwoman of the current council, and I serve with four men. And, you know, and I'm the first chairwoman as Holly, as Holly mentioned, and it's been a challenge. You know, I had no idea of what it was going to be like when I went into the position. I just knew that the woman's voice was needed. I didn't run until I'm old. Of course, I'm close to the end of my career. I was an introvert when I was young. That's why I ended up becoming an accountant. You know, I just did not like talking. I did not like getting in front of people. I thought I was going to be an accountant back in the corner, doing all the numbers and giving the reports and just give it to them and let them deal with the people. But what happened is I found out I'm the first one they put on the agenda, and I'm up there telling the people all about their numbers and all this stuff. So I had to learn how to talk to people, and I'm glad I did. You know, when you think about it, there's nothing to be afraid of. We all have faults. We all have good things, and you just got to do it. You just got to get up and you got to talk, and I've gotten pretty good at it over time. And some of my fellow councilmen will tell me that I talk too much and that I need to be more worried about just coordinating and taking care of things. But I make sure that in dealing with bringing back the woman's perspective in the tribal leadership role, for me it's amazing. I thought that when I first came in that I was just going to be fighting with men, but what's happened is it's brought a calmness in, it's brought peace. Before I came in, councilmen were fighting, families were divided, and not to say that's not still some of that going on, but one thing a woman can do is come in and bring people together. You know, my view of a leader is not, I got elected, now you got to do what I say. That is not my view of a leader. A leader is someone that you want to follow. You're not going to want to follow me if I'm not good to you. If I don't listen to you, you're not going to want to follow me. And I have to make decisions. If you're the people I'm serving, I can't make decisions just based on what you need. I need to make decisions based on what all of you need. And sometimes it may not be the best for you, but maybe it's the best for everyone. And so that's kind of how I came in. I wanted to be a unifying role. That was all I wanted to do. I never wanted to be chair. I just wanted to come in, maybe be secretary, organize all these guys, get things going and things happening and take care of all that. And then I got thrown into the chair role. So now I got this role of having to take care of business for 4 men and dealing with their personalities and making bad situations into good situations, making, you know, you have an angry group, you got to learn how to calm that in a good way. You just don't get up and use your fists and holler and, you know, get ready to fight. Sometimes you do that, but I do more of that behind closed doors. You do it more with a kind, gentle, you know, hand, and you listen. I've just found that listening is so critical. You know, the Creator gave us only one mouth. He gave us 2 ears and 2 eyes. So I think we need to watch and listen more than we talk. And so if we do that, we start understanding better. It's not always my way or the highway. It's, oh, I know why you feel that way. We got to do something about that because I got to listen. And I always say, and my grandma, I think, told me this, listen with your heart. Don't, you know, we go to school, and this was something I learned in accounting. Do we have any accountants here? math people? Anyone going into math? Well, you learn all these rigid theoretical rules that you got to follow, and you can't vary from them. And so I go back and I think I'm going to change my tribe. I'm going to make a move, and they're going to listen to me. And the first elder said, all that schooling, you need to stop using that so much. You need to listen to what your grandmother told you, and and listen. And so then when I started listening, it became easier. I can't change people. There's only one person I can't even change my husband. After 41 years, I know I can't change that bugger. There's no way I'm going to change him. But there is one person I can change, and that's myself. And so one of the things I've been able to do is learn to listen. Because if I can listen to you, if I can listen to the children, if I can listen to the elders, if I can listen to the person that is in prison and listen to their heartache, maybe I can do something about that. Maybe I can develop a re-entry system for when that person gets out of prison. Maybe they'll succeed, because I don't know how you pronounce this word, recidivism, the rate for Native Americans is like 40-some%, and of non-Native Americans, like it's 31, so it's like 14% higher for Native Americans. And why is that? We are people of the heart. We are people, indigenous people. It shouldn't be that way, but there's reasons that is. And so I need to learn to listen. If I'm going to be a leader, I need to learn to listen. But being a good leader is someone that you want to follow. And you're only going to want to follow me if I'm listening to you, and if I'm taking action and I'm incorporating in my decision making some of the things I hear from the people out there. That's just my view of what a good leader is. And I'm a servant of the people. They don't serve me, I serve them. And I got to keep that straight in my mind and in my heart. So that's my view of what a leader is. And I've tried to bring that in respectfully into the council chambers. And I think that we're working well together. And anyone who works with well, you all work with men. And sometimes we just have different ways of looking at things. So if we can all realize that maybe they're right sometimes and I'm wrong, and sometimes I'm right, and we make a decision based on consensus if we can. If we can't, we just vote on it, accept it, go on with the decision and support the decision. I think that's one way to look at it, and you have to let it go. You can't dwell and keep on, getting upset about decisions that were made that maybe you didn't vote on. And so anyway, that's kind of my view, and I feel like I've been able to help bring our council together, help encouraged to bring the members together, and that's all I want to do. I can't see. We need strategic plans. We need to do this with with drugs. We need to do this with mental health. We need to do this with incarceration. We need to do this with our economic development. There's a lot. All of that's going to happen. But what we really need to do is, it's not going to happen if we don't work together. And so that's kind of how I've looked at my role in leadership, is I'm just Carol. And I just got to be me, and I have to do the best I can for the people that I serve. And I always got to make decisions based on what's best for them. And fight for that. And if it doesn't go my way all the time, I just got to let it go and support the decision made. And so that's kind of how I've taken my current leadership role, and I think I'll probably stay that way. I hope to run for another term, maybe. I don't know if I get in there, I get in there. If I don't, I don't. It's amazing because I've run unopposed twice. And I'm not sure what's with that, but So maybe it's because I listen. I do listen. I love to listen. I've learned to like to listen, and I listen not thinking of how I'm going to respond. I'm listening to listen. And when you listen to listen, it comes natural. Your response isn't you're not making up what you're going to say. You're just listening, and that determines what the outcome is. And it's amazing for me. It took me 50 years to figure that out. Current day tribe, we employ about 900 people in the government and our enterprise operations. About half of them work for the government, and we run like a sovereign nation. We deal with land issues, with law and order codes, codes on how to deal with water quality, air quality with the land, and we deal with education, social, just like a government. And then the unique thing about tribes is we have a whole for-profit businesses that we also run. And for our tribe, we try to separate them as much from the government, from the tribal council. We by code, we have enterprise boards who oversee the for-profit businesses, but then the tribal council themselves appoint the board members on those enterprise boards. So it works pretty good. We have a lot of challenges in our tribe. We have a high poverty level. We have high unemployment. We aren't exempt from the drug problems that we all experience in the whole world. It's sad. It's sad to see what's come in our world. We have a lot of mental health issues. In addition, we have a Superfund site, which is the result of a uranium open mine pit, and it's in reclamation now. We have a lot of housing shortages. We haven't solved that problem. So we have a lot of challenges, and I look at these as opportunities, and we got to find ways to, not unlike the city council or the governor, we have to find ways to make it better. Housing is important. We're finding housing is important for people who go to treatment. We need a solution for that as they come back back to the community. I'm not sure where I am at with time. Does someone watching? Am I okay? I'm okay. So I want to talk about one thing, and I was talking to a few of the ladies before, and I think this is a real important thing, and I'm really going to try not to get emotional about this, but I wanted to talk about trauma. I think everybody in their life experiences trauma, and I'm going to give you a couple examples. My grandmother, my Grandma Cecile, she was born in 1911, and she went through the era where she was a fluent speaker, and she was pulled from her home along with her older brother and two older sisters and put in a boarding school. She wasn't allowed to speak the language, her hair was cut off, and she had to wear uniforms. And to top it off, she lost her older brother and her two older sisters to tuberculosis in the boarding schools. And then after that happened, they quarantined her. They put her in a little room for months and didn't let her come out. And so she was quarantined. That traumatic event affected my grandmother for her whole life. And I just loved my grandmother. She was a beautiful cultural. She loved to dance in the powwows. She was a beautiful beater. She beaded like 7 fully beaded costumes. And I think maybe you've seen maybe me in some of the outfits. But she lived through that trauma. She overcame it and became a stronger woman because of that. And to this day, I don't know how she was able to endure that pain of losing her older brother and her 2 sisters and still being left in the boarding school and being quarantined. And I do know that, I didn't know this till later in life, that she held it against her mother, but it wasn't her mother's choice of being pulled. And so, because I loved her so much on her deathbed, I told her, Grandma, forgive your mom so I can see you again. You know, we're all a little bit selfish, and I want to see my grandma again. And I wanted her to forgive her mother. So she experienced trauma. My mother, she experienced trauma. Her father died when she was 3 years old of a massive heart attack. So her mother had to raise them, and they were in poverty. I mean, this is during the Depression, and a lot of natives will tell you there was no difference before the Depression, during the Depression, because we lived off the land, and that's how we lived during the Depression. But what happened with her is there was a house fire, and she lost her older sister, her youngest sister, and 2 nieces. And so that was her trauma. And her mom, my grandma Cecile, said, well, I will go with you anywhere to go to college. And you can go to college and you can become anything you want. But my mother, because she was so lonely from losing her family members, all she wanted to do is get married and have kids. So she got married and had 7 of us, 2 girls and 5 boys. So I was the oldest girl and the babysitter of the family. But that, you know, that was my mother's trauma. And I'm no exception. You know, my parents, they lived hard lives, and they did not want their children to have any experience with having a hard life. But you can't protect everyone. I was sexually assaulted as a child under 5, and it was bad. And it was a family member that lived out of the home. And I put it down inside of me, and I didn't even remember it, and until later in life. I think what happened is I wanted attention because this happened to me, and I felt like it was my fault. And so I excelled in school, you know, and I got the attention of the teachers, every teacher, and then my parents, they telling me, all right, you know, you're smart. I wasn't smart, I just read and really worked hard. And then I really didn't realize this trauma until my husband and I were married 20 years, and we were I went through alcoholism. I had a lot of alcoholism. I was an alcoholic, and we were about ready to get divorced. We had 4 kids, and I agreed to go to counseling. I was the one that didn't want to go. He wanted, and it took about a year before this come out. But I tell you, once I realized what it was and what had happened to me, and the counselor had got that to come out, what had happened to me, and I found out that that wasn't my fault, and that as a result of that traumatic event, I went through all of this bad things. You know, I did terrible things to people while I was drinking. People did terrible things to me, you know, and so through this whole process, what I experienced is forgive yourself, forgive whoever hurt you, ask for forgiveness from the ones that you hurt, and get the professional help you need. And I wish I would have done that when I was in my teenage years, but I didn't. I didn't even know, you know, it's just something that you put deep down inside of you. And so I guess my advice to you is everyone has trauma in their life, and it's important, if you have had trauma, that you get the help you need. And it's never your fault. You know, it is not your fault. This happened to you. This trauma happened. My grandmother was sent off to boarding school. It wasn't her fault that her brothers and sisters got sick and died. You know, my mother, it wasn't her fault that she lost her family members. And I now know it wasn't my fault that I was sexually assaulted as a little girl under 5. And I just, you know, I think giving that a name and getting the help and healing and learning to love yourself again is so very critical. And I just had to share that with you because if you're going to be beautiful young leaders. I can see it in all your eyes. And if you have anything that you need to let go, you know, you gotta find a way to let it go. And that if that means counseling or talking, finding someone to talk to, do it. Because don't wait as long as I almost going through a divorce, thank God. My husband convinced me to go to counseling, and now we're back, you know. He drives me to meetings across the state, and he loves golf, and he's retired, and hopefully we're going to have grandkids soon. But that's just my advice. You know, everyone has trauma, and one of the things with, it could be simple things like being bullied. You know, we just have this terrible thing of bullying, and I've learned that. I have to admit, I was a bullier once when I was a kid, and then I got bullied, and it's neither one is good. And so I think we always got, if we see it, somehow we need to help. Whether we're helping, we say something good to the one that's being bullied, or if we tell the bullier, that's not nice, we don't act that way. You know, whatever way we can help people, because we got a lot of, I think it's hate. And we just need to be kind to one another. And it's important, because when I'm on my deathbed, it doesn't matter how much money I have, how big my house was, how fancy my cars were. What's important is that I was a good person, and I was a good mother, I was a good wife, I was a good tribal leader, I helped people. That's what's important. And I don't know, that kind of puts it in perspective. When I'm on my deathbed, what do I want people to think? The richest person in the world? Well, I don't think so. You know, money, you can't take it with you. My dad told me that. So in closing, I do want to read a quote, and it's from Alex Sherwood. Alex Sherwood, I knew Alex Sherwood. When I was young, I was Miss Spokane royalty, and I got to travel with him. And he's what we would probably call one of our last chiefs. And he had a tremendous kind heart, and he had a true love of all of the elements of the earth, and he knew about the salmon, and he knew about the river. So I want to read something he did in 1972. He was standing in Spokane along the river, I think near where, what's that, that fancy restaurant down by the falls? Anthony's, yeah. So he's standing there, and this is what he says. Sometimes, even now, I find a lonely spot where the river still runs wild. I find myself talking to it. I might ask, River, do you remember how it used to be? The game, the fish, the pure water, the roar of the falls, boats, canoes, fishing, platforms. You fed and took care of our people then. For thousands of years we walked your banks, and we used your waters. You would always answer when our chiefs called to you with their prayer to the river spirit. Sometimes I stand and shout, River, do you remember us? So I love that, that him talking to the river and really seeing if it's still there and still hearing us. I believe it is. So I really thank you for asking me to talk with you today, and I just am honored. I want you to know I'm honored, and you're all such beautiful ladies, and I just know that you're special, and The Creator has a special plan for you. You just need to open your heart, and He'll help you find that. So, She Uhoy Lemlemsh, thank you.